What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Soul Hoops podcast. My name is Jeffrey, and I'm joined, as always, by Ryan and Matthias. Today, we are going to be going through the Northwest Division preview. We will be joined by a guest at some point today, and then go over some other NBA news. But before we get into the ball talk, Ryan, Matthias, how are you guys doing today?
Doing well. It's been kind of a gloomy day here in Minneapolis, but it's kind of nice. I'm super tired. I'm running off coffee and just willpower at this point. So we're here though. I'm excited to talk some ball.
Yeah, no, I'm doing good. I actually got some good news. I got fully medically cleared, so I'm going back working training with the girls team here.
Nice.
There you go.
Officially tomorrow morning, so very excited.
Yeah, well,
Cool.
that's good. I'm glad that you're back healthy from all that stuff that was going on. But yeah, Ryan, it is very bad. It's been very gloomy in the upper north or Midwest the last week. Very rainy. Been needing to cut my grass before winter, and it's rained for about 7 days straight. So we're getting out there, but yeah, it's been good. So first thing we're going to talk about is a little bit just the WNBA finals wrapped up last week, or not last week, yesterday. Yesterday wrapped up with the Las Vegas Aces went back to back, capping off a very historic season. Probably if not the greatest statistical team,
Yeah.
probably ever in WNBA history. And the first team to go back to back since 2001. Or 2002, which I don't know when I would have been like 6 months old when they last time that happened. So that's pretty crazy to think about. But yeah, you guys got any thoughts about it? I know Matthias was really locked into that game.
Oh yeah, I could go into the game for a while. Overall for the whole series though, I think the obvious thing and the biggest talking point is going to be the whole MVP talk.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Everyone's made a claim that like Stewie didn't deserve it even before the series, and Stewie struggled mightily, and I was at the hands of A'ja Wilson and the Aces defense. So I think that'll be a huge talking point. I'm actually not too upset with Stewie's performances. I thought the final play was actually executed really well. I think the Aces just played better defense. They created 2 open looks, and honestly, the first look that was passed off, they could have shot, and I wouldn't have been upset. And the second look, I'm not upset at all with. It's just good defense and just a bad execution.
Tough shot. I mean,
yeah.
The last play, you live with it. The last play people were talking about. Stewie had a bad shooting game yesterday, without a doubt. I mean, like 3 for 17 is like really bad, obviously, and I think people were confused as to why the play at the end was drawn up for Stewie to get the ball. But I like the play from the Liberty side, and yeah, the shot from Sloot in the corner, like it airballed, right? But I thought that's a good look. You live with that. In the finals, you gotta sometimes that's what it comes down to. You gotta have trust in your players that they can make those shots, and sometimes they don't make them. That's how it goes. But yeah, I mean, the Aces capped off a historic season by like every metric possible. Like we're witnessing the greatest team, one of the greatest teams to ever play the sport of basketball, period, regardless of if it's men or women. What the Aces have done this entire season is historic. Doesn't even really do it justice, honestly. And A'ja Wilson, Finals MVP, her resume at like 27 years old is actually just nuts. Like the awards she's racked up and how good she is on both sides of the ball. A'ja Wilson is different beast, truly.
Oh, 100%. She's put herself in the conversation of top 5, easy. Like I honestly, if you say top 5, I'm not gonna bet. There's been people saying like, what does she have to do to get to be on the throne? And I honestly don't think there's a lot. In my opinion, it's my more. She's both the biggest what if and like the best of all time, if that makes sense. Because to her own right, she did good off the court and post her retirement, but she was also great. I also want to talk about, though, to get back with the Aces, is they did this without Candace Parker, also an all-time great defensive anchor.
Yeah.
They held Stewie and Sabrina. Sabrina only had 13 points as well. Sabrina didn't have a good shooting series at all either. They held two of the best scorers in the W right now.
Yeah.
Without one of their best defenders, and they also like held off this comeback without Chelsea Gray, one of the best like playmakers in the league. Like, this isn't just some super team that waltzed their way through the whole season. They had challenges, and I think that unlike a lot of super teams you see in the NBA, they actually have depth, and that's because similar to the beginning Dynasty Warriors, they were built through the draft, and it's actually been really cool to see them be built up through the expansion, like, and all that.
Yeah,
it's been cool.
Yeah, it's been really cool, and just that game last night was like electric. I mean, I wasn't able to catch the entire thing, but like, once I kind of got wind of this is looking like a really good game, a really special game, I started watching it, and man, that Sabrina 3 in that fourth quarter, and when the crowd just popped, it's like, this is awesome right now. The Aces,
I do want to. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, the Aces depth, like, even like like what you just said, down Chelsea Gray, down Candace Parker, to major pieces of their team. And yesterday, like, they were able to play that defense while being in foul trouble. A lot of their team was in foul trouble down the stretch, and they were still able to play that tough defense and to hold Stewie and Sabrina to those shooting games. So that makes it even more impressive. But you can say what you're going to say.
Yeah, I just want to give some credit on the Liberty side, because you brought it up a little bit. Stewie had a bad shooting night, but I actually think she played very good basketball. She had some really good defensive stops. She had huge defensive plays in the second half to keep the Liberty in the game.
Yeah, that block, like in the last 2 minutes, was so clutch. Like, they needed that at that point.
No, 100%. And I think again, even on the last play, she made the right decisions throughout the game. It's just sometimes the shots don't fall. I was also really impressed with Jonquel Jones. She had some huge defensive highlights throughout this whole series.
She's one of my favorite players in all the W.
Yes.
She's such a fun player to watch. Seriously.
Yeah. I actually expect this Aces Liberty thing to be a repeat unless this free agency really switches up. I don't know what the free agent pool or what it's looking like in the off season. But the talent gap between the Aces, the Liberty, and the rest of the league is pretty big, in my opinion. And we saw that in the series this year.
Yeah, for sure. There's a big talent gap. And I mean, the Sun are kind of the third team in that upper echelon, but even they can't really hang, because as good as Alyssa Thomas is, they don't really have a lot of other options besides her to where they can really compete. And maybe there is like some surprise team. It's kind of like in the middle that they just are amazing. But I think it's fair to expect we get a Liberty Aces rematch next season, and maybe the season after that. And it's a 2-team race, basically.
Yeah, I'm hoping for at least one rematch, and a trilogy would be cool, especially if the Liberty come back and actually win. This series honestly was close. Like, obviously it almost went back to the elimination game, but Aces were in real threat. After Chelsea Gray went down, I was like, oh, I actually thought the Liberty were gonna take it. I wasn't too faithful in the Aces, as bad as that sounds.
Yeah, because those injuries, right? And
they mean something.
Think about the Liberty having the momentum off the Game 3 win. There was definitely a way that the Liberty could have won the series, and it sucks that they're, probably their 2 best players on the offensive side of the ball had bad shooting games in the elimination game.
Yeah.
But again, like we just said, you got to live with it. Jeff, do you have any thoughts on the game?
No, not really. I caught the end of it. I kind of agree with everything Matthias said about, sometimes the other team is just better than you. Sometimes sometimes you just get outplayed. There's not much you can do. And it seemed like the Aces were kind of just they really locked in for the last game of the series, and we're kind of just like we're gonna win this game. This is wrapping up now. But yeah, I am excited to hopefully get more into the WNBA. I started to watch more this season, and hopefully next year I can really get into it. I need to pick a team. I think that's one of my problems. No team in Milwaukee, so maybe I'll go with one of the teams close, either Minnesota or Chicago, or Indiana. But yeah, I'm looking forward. And there's also like a generational draft class coming in the WNBA next season. So like 2003 type of NBA draft type of stuff coming in. So should be a good era being born into the WNBA. For sure.
I'm really excited for the new era of the WNBA. There's so many names. Caitlin Clark, I don't want to go into it, but I actually want to give them names and their love. Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Haley Van Lith,
Paige Buchers.
I'm excited to see what Paige Buchers does. I'm ready for her comeback because people forget that she was running shit before she got hurt. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and she's from around where I am. She went she went to Hopkins High School, which is like a high school that my high school team we're in the same like conference, so we played them all the time. I saw Paige Buchers play in person her junior year, when she was still really good, but like not really on like the map yet. And it was cool to see her kind of like blow up into this women's basketball star, because she's like around where I'm from. And I saw her at the airport like once, like a few months ago. I just saw her like walking around. I don't know. It was cool. She's like a hometown local celebrity a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard not to root for those athletes that come from where you're from.
Especially because like Minnesota, we don't have a lot of basketball players. It's like if athletes from Minnesota make it, it's usually for playing hockey, because hockey is kind of the king up here. So whenever like, a WNBA or NBA basketball player, or even like a D1 player comes up from around here, it's always like a cool thing. So but huge draft class coming in. I'm so excited to kind of watch that unfold.
Too bad Jalen Suggs isn't really good.
I think he'll be good.
Yeah, but yeah.
And if not, Chet Holmgren. We got Chet Holmgren too.
So. Yeah, you have Chet.
Yeah.
Well, you guys got any preseason stuff you want to talk about? Been more of the same, honestly. Wemby's been crazy.
Yeah, Wemby. I watched the game against the Rockets last night before I watched the Liberty Aces game, and like, my God, the whole league is in trouble. Like, some of the shit he's pulling off last night was not fair.
And it's exactly what we talked about after Summer League with real NBA space and playmaking and other players that are real NBA players on the court with him. Like, it's going to be like he's going to look completely different. He's nutmegging dudes in transition and throwing cross-court passes, and the defense looks insane.
He was dunking on he was like dunking on players from outside the restricted area, like jumping up and man, not fair. And hitting his threes too. He's like making his threes, which is like that's what puts it all together, honestly.
Yeah. And last night, I will say he shot poorly for the majority of the game. Like I think he started 0 of 6, 0 of 7, something like that.
He's so impactful even when he's not scoring.
Yeah,
exactly. He started like 0 of 6, 0 of 7. He had like 10 points. And
doesn't even matter.
And because it's either he gets an open look and he'll make or miss that open look, or you're gonna have to foul him. And he's such a good free throw shooter that he's going to he's not just some big you can foul. Yeah. He can shoot 75+% from free throw consistently.
Yeah, he's got a good enough touch where you can't hack him like you can like a lot of other bigs. Also, we saw his passing chops really show out yesterday. He had that like one pass where he was falling out of the baseline. He like threw it behind his back. That's crazy. Like, he should not be allowed to do that. He needs to go to jail for that. Like, keep him far away from the NBA because I don't want that. I don't want him in my conference. Seriously.
Well, even on the nutmeg play, he nutmegs the guy.
Yeah.
And then he does like a no look over the head pass, and it's like,
that's stupid.
That's for guards,
stupid.
man.
Last night I didn't watch much of the Wizards game, but Jordan Poole, like what a game from Jordan
41.
Poole.
Denny, by the way, shut up and watch the goddamn show, bro.
Yeah,
not a good look at all.
Not a good look. Let Poole cook.
Yeah.
Seriously.
I think Denny's actually a guy that, with Bilal looking so good, I think Denny's a guy that could get moved. Especially, I'm gonna confirm this before I say it, but I believe
I agree with that.
It's the last year of his deal. Like you better. Denny has to. He was good last year. His defense was good. His playmaking was good, but you gotta show something a little bit.
And if he's not buying in, and I know it's like just like putting your head down on one play isn't like doesn't necessarily say if you're not.
Also, it was a shot that went in.
And he's cooking. He's got like 35 in the garden. Of course, he's gonna keep shooting. And it's not like he was like had 35 and he was shot like 50 times. It's like Jordan Poole was absolutely flame throwing. Let him shoot. Let the high hand go. It's just common basketball knowledge.
He wasn't even like chucking either. I thought like all of his shots were really good looks, and I felt like he played at a great pace, and he looked like every shot was his feet were set. It looked great. Like even the step back that like he had where he like lost the ball, got it back. Like I thought Jordan Poole played so good last night, and like he's not going to have 41 every game. He's not going to shoot that well every game, but I thought like if he can kind of clean up a lot of his carelessness with the ball, which we saw last night, his value as a player overall is going to skyrocket.
Oh,
he's gonna be. I'm very excited. I'm actually pretty excited to watch this Wizards team. I think they're gonna be absolutely abysmal.
Yeah,
but it's gonna be a fun team to watch.
Yeah.
Poole's a Wisconsin Milwaukee guy, so obviously he's on the agenda list for the year. I'm really excited, and they have so many pieces that they can move to get more assets. Like DeLon Wright, Tyus Jones is a guy that can get moved again. Like Denny, if somebody wants to do, kind of the route of we're not going to extend you, like they did with Rui. They literally did that with Rui last year. They have pieces also that like Landry Shamet isn't that great, but like a team could have an injury to one of their shooters and be like, we need a Landry Shamet on the roster just to have some sort of shooting ability,
Yeah, for sure.
Like Mike Muscala, and they also have Gallinari's on the roster, and only a $6 million contract. So that could be another guy. So I'm excited for this Wizards rebuild. I think they should be a fun team.
Yeah.
Let's hopefully they get it right this time because I haven't been.
I'm glad that they cleaned house. I'm glad they cleaned house because
it was needed.
They need a rebrand.
Yes, they do. They definitely do. Those jerseys are abysmal. That's why I want the Bucks to get a rebrand too, because we have the same style jerseys with the like stripes on like the top half. It's so ugly. So ugly. Solid colored jerseys are definitely the wave with like a simple pattern.
You're gonna trust Nike right now with a rebrand?
No, those. Oh my goodness, we should talk about that. The City Edition jerseys coming out right now. They all look horrible, dude.
I didn't mind the Cleveland one. I'm not gonna lie. I like the land.
I like
the land
too.
was guys.
Yeah,
but like the font looks so stupid.
I kind of like the Cleveland ones, but like, yeah, I think we could honestly just do away with City jerseys because I used to like them a lot as an idea, but now teams have kind of run out of like ideas and color schemes to go with.
And they banned a bunch of colors because like a lot of teams wanted to do like cream or like a light brown, and they said no because it messes with the digital ads on the court.
Yeah, it's so lame. There's a lack of like team identity that carries over from year to year when teams are always getting new jerseys and they wear them for a lot of games. Like, don't get me wrong, there are a lot of some of my favorite jerseys that we've seen in the last few years have been like City jerseys. But most of them either just like are boring and forgettable, or sometimes they just suck. Like, do you guys remember that Mavericks one where it was like the green graffiti font? That was like actually the ugliest jersey I've ever seen.
No,
Like
I
it
agree.
looked like Subway
And the-
Surfers, bro.
And the
It did.
issue is, it's like, I think there are some teams that actually, I wish the City Edition is so hard because there's some teams that have done City Edition right almost every year.
I'm gonna be honest. I love the Portland ones. Those
I
PDX,
love-
the bluish green ones. Oh, those
So
are so
good.
nice.
Portland's a great example, and I actually was going to bring them up because every jersey they have has either like deeply rooted in the city's history. For instance, the brown one had like each color was like representative of certain eras, and it had like, or the Portland like mountains above the city and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
if you're from Portland, like you get all the references, so it's like you still have the brand identity. Then
Yeah.
they have like the cream rip city ones or like the PDX ones. See, everyone knows about the PDX carpet. That's easy brand identity. That's with the whole city. And then the rest is paying homage to classic jerseys, but with like a little revamp. That's
Yeah.
what city adjacent jerseys should be.
Yeah.
But you have people just kind of throwing out like catchphrases or mottos without like real like artistic value behind them. And
Heat
it's getting
culture.
ugly.
that
exactly.
was ugly.
Culture jerseys.
You just
That
put
was
out a
ugly.
motto with no artistic value, and it's disgusting.
These
I have those. I have a Damian Lillard one. I'm so
these are
disappointed I never
so
got a
nice.
They're
So
so
nice.
fire. Those are my
Oh,
favorite jerseys ever, dude.
And also these cream ones. I don't know if you can. These ones are so nice too.
Yeah.
I love those.
I also
Yeah,
want to talk about Sacramento has great ones.
Yeah.
Memphis has great ones, and Toronto has great city edition, in my opinion.
Yeah. Minnesota, it's like hit or miss. Last year's we had like the ones where they're all white and like the random colors in like the
Mhm.
midsection. Those were like really bad. But in
I don't like
2022, we had like
The blue and the throwback ones.
I gotta
the-
pull
yeah,
up
those are good.
those
the
ones. Those are
yeah,
nice.
the Bucks had the Cream City ones that were like, oh, they're so perfect.
those are
And
nice,
and people don't know that reference unless it's again the same thing with the Portland points. Like people don't know what that means unless you're from Wisconsin or Milwaukee, and that's why everyone loved it in Milwaukee because Milwaukee's known as the Cream City because of the Cream City Brick Company that was here in the early 1900s, but it's like now we can't wear those, and then those are so good.
These are
Those
so cool.
Yeah,
I love
those are
these.
perfect.
Yeah.
And then it's on top of that. Now it's just like they're running out of colors, they're running out of designs. It just looks horrible, and like it's
Yeah.
like why not just do a city edition jersey for like a 2 to 3 year period? We don't need new ones every year.
Yeah. No, I agree. Or you could do something where it's like, you remember when Nike first came out and they had the earned edition as well?
Yeah.
You
Yep.
could do something where if you make the playoffs, you get a city edition jersey. And
They still do that.
there you go. Do they still do earned jerseys? I don't remember. I haven't seen them. But
I
it's
don't-
like you could like combine them a little bit, you know what I mean? And it's just like
Yeah.
I
if
thought
you make the
the,
playoffs, you get a city edition. If not, that sucks.
I don't think they do earned jerseys anymore.
Maybe
Or
I think they do it in
I don't-
baseball. That's all I know.
How many
Or-
jerseys do you do? 5? Home,
In
away,
NBA.
home,
It-
away,
okay,
an
it
alternate,
depends.
the home jersey, and then because the Bucks had 4. 5, no, the Bucks had like 6. They had
It
their
depends
green,
on
they
the
had the
team,
white, they had
because,
the black
like-
with the antlers. They had
Yeah. So there's the home, away, the statement,
Statement.
and then there's the city, which is new every year, and then some teams opt to have like throwback jerseys.
Oh yeah,
Um,
but you can only do that like every 5 years or something.
You can only do this every 5
Yeah.
years, and like not every team does it. Like teams choose if they want to have a throwback jersey. So sometimes there can be 5, sometimes there are just like 4.
Yeah, never
Yeah.
mind. I'm
Yeah. I mean, if they did some rule with that, like for instance, like when you can do a throwback every 5 years, it'd be like you can change your city edition every 3, like Jeff was
Yeah,
saying. I would like
that's-
that a lot.
That's what I'm saying. Because like if teams would just like keep the same city jersey for like 3 years at the minimum,
imagine your team
that'd be
just
great.
has the worst the absolute worst jersey.
Yeah.
Just there for 3 years. I hate
But-
the Bucks blue ones. I hate the blue ones. I hate the blue
I don't
ones.
mind them, honestly. I think a lot of the jerseys look good once they're on, and I get it. But this year, I think, has been the worst. Like it's progressively gotten worse every year, and it's going to get terrible.
And you know what's even worse too? I actually like the jersey design for ours. I just hate that they're blue. because it's supposed to be
Yeah.
about like the Great Lakes or whatever. It's like, dude, come on.
Yeah.
Like,
And it's it's kind of a neon blue. It's kind of like
Yeah.
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 But that's it. I think it's kind of just based off of who likes what and how they look.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So,
Other preseason stuff. Curry, he took over.
Oh
Yesterday.
yeah.
People
Yeah,
are
no,
like,
you're right.
he's
Yes,
using
last
all of it.
night.
He's using all of his late season, late game magic in preseason. I was like, God. Why
What
were
that
they
means
in the
he's
game?
just gonna
Really
be
quick.
on that
Why were
tournament all
they
year.
in the? Why were all the starters in the game that late?
Bad blood.
Yeah, well, that's what people were saying. But I'm like, what is the point of it? Like, why is Curry out there against? Why are they like doing this physical ass like last four score? Like, I like it. It's cool to watch. But like, I was like, why are they all? I was just seeing the clips. I'm like, why are they all in the game in the fourth quarter? This doesn't even make any sense to it.
From a coach's perspective, I bet there's two kind of like ways with how preseason is usually dealt with.
Yeah.
Either you start off strong and you like try to like push people early and then you rest them and like have their legs under them for opening night, or you start off soft and you slowly ramp them up until the last preseason game, and then like you do a full 4 quarters, full simulation game before opening night. And like that's probably what Kerr. I can't remember watching Kerr's preseason games prior to this, so I can't say that's how his process usually is.
Yeah.
But that's probably what their process was like, and like their thought process is get a full game under everybody's legs so you're actually in shape.
Yeah. I don't know. It was just interesting. Curry did go crazy though.
Great preseason environment. I do want to talk about that too. The preseason environment has been amazing. I feel like there's been a lot of times I've been watching these games and these fans are so like the fan noise is so active and it's great.
I think there's a lot of teams. I think there's a lot more like star players playing in these games. I think that's why.
Mm-hmm.
I think this preseason been a lot overall, and I think a lot of coaches and teams. I think they kind of recognize that the league is so close right now, and everyone needs to be on their A game right away. So they're trying to get warmed up right off the bat.
Yeah,
especially Western Conference teams, because that conference is going to be very, very, very close. Like the Eastern Conference is going to be, I think it's going to be deep and it's going to be good, but it's not going to be nowhere near where there's 11 teams that you can make an argument for like 11 teams and winning like 45 plus games. So I don't see, but you guys ready? You guys want to start on the division Northwest?
I think we'll get into it.
Yeah.
Our guest is having some technical difficulties, so we'll see if we can have him on today. We might have to push it back for another episode, but we'll just go and we'll see what happens. So as always, we do things from the bottom up of where they placed last year, and that leaves us with the Portland Trailblazers as the first thing we're going to talk about. And Matthias is a Portland Trailblazers fan, so it should be interesting. We'll get some fan insight going.
Yes.
So let me bring up the rotation. I mean, Matthias, you actually probably just know it. So how about you just say it?
It'll be Scoot and probably Matisse. There hasn't been an official announcement, I do not believe, but if I'm a betting man, I'll go Matisse Thybulle at the 3, and then Jeremy Grant at the 4, Ayton at the 5. Our bench, it will be looking like Shaedon Sharpe, Malcolm Brogdon, Robert Williams, and Jabari Walker. That'll probably be our 9-man.
Yeah.
And then in terms of like fringe playing players, Toumani Camara, guy we got from the Suns trade, he will probably play. He's been really impressive. And then with the fact that Robert Williams is injury prone, we'll probably see a lot of Moses Brown or Duop Reith, just depending how things go. And Chris Murray will also get burned. We're going to suck, and we might deal with a lot of injuries, and we might trade people. Like there's a lot of things that could happen because we have Brogdon, we have Robert Williams. I don't know how viable that bench is going to be. So like I think there's going to be 12 guys that play throughout the year, not consistently every night, but we'll see a lot of guys in that rotation.
Bad teams tend to have a deeper bench.
Yep.
to play more, have deeper rotation, I should say.
Yeah, because you're still like the Blazers are still in the process of seeing who's part of the core long term, and that's just how it goes. You usually run like a lot of different bench units. It's interesting that you say that Shaden Sharp is going to come off the bench, but then you think about it, and it's like, well, maybe he's not really a small forward, especially if you're going to pair him next to Scoot and Anthony, because of Shaden's like defensive deficiencies that just kind of come with being a young player. So, yeah, I think Matisse definitely could get that starting small forward spot, like you said.
They need
It's
they need some more
two.
defense in that lineup.
They do.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
And I also think, talking about preseason, the one thing I noticed was Shaden looked uncomfortable in looking to score when he was on the floor with both Scoot and Ant. Like he kind of fell back into that role he was last year of only catch and shoot or catch and dunk. You know what I mean? Like, but when Scoot was out or when Ant was out and it was just like he was with one of them or he's by himself, he was actually looking to initiate offense. So I think it just makes sense to put him as a 6-man where he's comfortable. And you don't have to make him sit off ball and you don't want to pigeonhole him early in his career.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And I kind of like Shaden kind of running the bench unit, just kind of letting him spread his wings, and be the first option in that group.
I have a question for you guys actually, because this has been something that's been going on in Blazers Twitter. After the preseason, Scoot hasn't been as NBA ready and as refined as many thought. Not saying he's bad. I still expect him to be very, very good this season. Mm-hmm. But I've seen a lot of people throw out the idea of putting Scoot on the bench for the first 25 games, like LaMelo Ball, and running Shaden at the 2 with Ant at the 1, and trying to maximize Ant's potential at the 1, Shaden's potential at the 2, and get Scoot used to NBA pace and play with the bench until he's ready.
Yeah, I don't hate that.
I do.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm very against it. It's the same. I'm with this in everything. If you draft a guy highly, it's not like, I'm going to compare these two situations. For example, like Jason Tatum got drafted number 3 overall. Okay. But he got drafted to a team that was very good right away because they had the Nets picks.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. We're going to, even though he's a very highly rated prospect, he could easily start over, I think, like Jay Crowder or whoever, I don't know, whoever was their starting forward, like whatever. He could easily start over him, but we're going to put him on the bench so he can get used to it. That makes sense because they need to win games. But when you are going to be bad, you have a backup point guard who can run the 6-man role. Literally won 6-man of the year last year as a point guard. I think especially letting him have the ball in his hands, make mistakes, learn from those mistakes, and adjust with the other players right away, playing against the best players right away. Because if he doesn't, there's going to be adjustment time. And also, when the Hornets did that with LaMelo, everyone was saying they're like, this is pointless. He looks so much better. Like, it took like 5 games, and then he's like looking so much better, and they're starting like Terry Rozier over him for no reason.
It was like Devontae Graham. I think
like Devontae Graham is starting over your number 2 overall.
I forgot about that. I forgot that Devontae Graham led the Hornets in scoring for like an
entire
year.
he was a bug. And then who did he get? He got traded to what? The Pelicans, and everyone was like, "That's a pickup," and he was horrible.
Yeah, he sucked. He's on the Spurs still, right? Yeah.
He's gonna be one of those guys that one year he's gonna end up on a contender, and he's just gonna have a crazy like off the bench scoring season.
Yeah. No, do you guys have anything you want to talk about the Blazers? I could go on forever, but
I feel like we've talked so much about the Blazers. I don't have much to talk about. I would say, like, with that idea that you threw out, I also like the idea of keeping Scoot in the starting lineup, because I think for this team to be successful long-term, building for the future, all those guys need to learn how to play with each other. And I think Anthony is already so good off ball he needs to develop more on-ball skills, even though he's very good on ball already. I think developing him as a ball handler and making him more on ball, and also Scoot's always had the ball in his hands throughout his whole career, obviously. So getting Scoot to learn to play more off ball, I think would be very important, because otherwise I think them developing the same skill set at the same time doesn't really work well, in my opinion.
True. And then it'll run into the issue of everyone's already saying, oh, they're going to butt heads. And it's like, they haven't even yet. It's like, let them play basketball. They suck. Let them play 3 years together and get good before you have to worry about it.
Yeah.
But you're right. If they produce, or if they develop redundant skill sets, they will truly butt heads, and you will have to trade one of them.
Yeah.
It's like,
if I'm Chauncey Billups, I would start Scoot and bring Shaedon off the bench at least for the start of the year. But I've
been very advocate. I think Shaedon's better. I think Shaedon's can develop. Shaedon also needs to develop the ball in his hands and have him play.
I agree.
Off the bench.
Yeah, because like as far as like the order of priorities, like I think Scoot's development is. I think Scoot is kind of. I don't want to say Scoot is like the center of the franchise, but he kind of is in a lot of ways. Like he has the highest potential of anyone on the team. They drafted him really high. I mean, they traded Dame requested out, right? But they like trading Dame is like a vote of confidence in Scoot that he can take over that starting point guard role. Right.
He requested,
maybe not,
but
yeah.
Dame requested out because we decided to draft Scoot. We decided to stick and draft at number 3 instead of trade it because we have so much belief in Scoot. That's the type of player Scoot can be.
Yeah, that's right. So that's kind of why I think
they knew what type of. If they didn't have Scoot there, if it was Brandon Miller, I guarantee you that pick would have been traded.
Yeah,
I bet you they take.
Or they're moving.
They move down.
Or they draft they move back in the draft.
Yeah, so
Zion might be Zion or BI might be in Portland right now.
So I think Scoot starting is like important. More, I think his development I'd prioritize a bit more over Shaedon. While I do think Shaedon's ceiling is very, very high still. And Anthony, you kind of want to. He has room to grow, obviously, as well.
Yeah, Anthony. It's one of those things where it's like right now, Anthony is a lot. He still has room to grow, but it's like, you know what he is. Like, he's been in the league 6 years. He's like, a lot of times you're not going to see a huge improvement. Right now, it's just like, let's see if Anthony can refine his skills.
Yeah,
and then you keep him on your roster for as long as possible until you either get a really good deal for him or you find out which of the guards like you have to make, because there's still a chance Scoot or Shaedon never get to the player Anthony is. Like, that's just how prospects and potential and
you never really know
works. You never know. So it's like, I don't like the idea of fire sailing on Anthony yet, even though I do agree Sharp and Scoot probably are number 1 and number 2 in terms of like investing.
Yeah, in my opinion, I don't think that the Blazers should rush anything with what they've got going on right now. Just see what they've got for at least for 2 years. I also think that it would be good for Scoot to come off or to start, because getting him reps playing with a big right away, like Ayton, in the pick and roll, and just like getting him those like reps of knowing how to navigate an offense playing with a big, I think would be huge for his development early on. I guess the counter argument to that for me is that I don't think just because you were drafted high, you should be necessarily given the keys right away. I do think players should. I think players should have to earn their spot. In the starting lineup.
That's actually a message that Chauncey has. I believe he actually said that. He said, Scoot has to earn it. Like, we love Scoot, and there's a reason we brought Scoot here, but he has to earn it.
Yeah, because I mean, these players they're joining teams of NBA players who can all play and who can all score 20 if they get the opportunity to.
Yeah.
So
and one thing I will say in this situation specifically, there's obviously a void at the point guard position, and I always say that I think the best thing for development is not to hold them back in any manner. I think you should let them develop how they need to develop. And one of the things that also I think was actually a hindrance to LaMelo Ball in some points and is today is it took him a little bit of time to just get free reign and
Mhm.
to make mistakes, and I think sometimes it made the team negative because the team was so up
Yeah.
and down and stuff like that. And
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
also situational though too, because
Yeah.
like I think about Anthony Edwards on the Timberwolves, and obviously his ceiling as a player was evident.
yeah,
From when he was in college at Georgia, that's why he was the number 1 pick. It's because his ceiling was so high, and I feel like everyone kind of knew that. But also, you're joining a team with Karl Anthony Towns and D'Angelo Russell, 2 guys who can average 25 points per game, given the shots, who are really good offensive players in their own right. So
yes,
for Ant to take the reins as the number 1 guy, like he had to work for that. He had to show that he could
Yes.
do that. The Wolves, Ryan Saunders, Chris Finch, they didn't just hand him the keys in his rookie year because they thought they knew he had the highest potential. I think they made him work for it, and that was,
Yeah.
I think, better for his overall growth and like leadership too, long term. And I'm not going to accuse like a Trae Young of this, but we see players who are handed the keys from like the day they walk in an organization.
Luka.
Luka, I
Yeah.
think
They
sometimes we
gave
do.
up on this Dennis Smith just because Luka didn't, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And like Dennis Smith
dude, I thought
obviously
Dennis
is
Smith
great,
was going to be
but
so good, bro. I was
at
so
the
high on
time
Dennis Smith
they
too.
gave up on a good rookie, like coming off of rookie year, and he had showed potential. And it's like, development is so nitpicky with situational stuff that we don't know if they ruined Dennis Smith. Like, we really don't know. Like, obviously it was a good decision, but at the time, that's someone that was handed the keys.
yeah. And I don't always know being handed the keys just unequivocally right away is also good for someone's development either.
Oh, 100%.
Because we see like egos start to form, and there are issues that come along with that as well. So
Yeah. The thing with the Blazers though is that, like you said, with the Timberwolves, once when Ant came in, they had 2 guys. Right now, the Blazers have about 3 guys that like could easily have the mindset of, hey, these are my
4.
keys. 4, yeah. DeAndre Ayton, max, like borderline max player that just got traded for.
yeah, Ayton needs touches. He's gonna have to have touches.
He's gonna have touches. He's coming with a mindset that like, oh, I'm gonna try to come in and make this team my team. Jeremy Grant just got fucking paid.
Yes,
He's gonna try to come
right.
in and be like, I got paid. This is my team. Guess who's getting paid? Anthony Simons. Damian Lillard basically said, "This is your team" during his fucking write-off. You know what I mean? Dame has been basically raising this guy in an incubator in the NBA since he's been a rookie.
Yeah.
Anthony Simons is coming in and saying, "This is my team," and then obviously you have Scoot, and then you even have Shaden, who also is like, "Hey, there's a hole. I have a chance to make a sophomore leap. I could try to make this my team."
Yeah,
You have a hole. You have a lot of players, and so I don't see it necessarily like. I'm worried that we're not going to find a team identity because of something like that. We're going to be trying to develop too many guys.
And that's on Chauncey, though. That's on Chauncey's responsibility as a coach.
and I think he kind of has a bit of a tough job for being like a coach of a rebuilding team because of that. Like, there are actually a lot of mouths to feed in this team. Like, we just spent a lot of time talking about Shaden and Simons, who are players that need the ball. Scoot obviously needs the ball. He needs the ball like a lot. But they just paid a ton. They paid Jeremy Grant so much. And he's averaged 20 for like the last 3 seasons. Like, he is not going to be happy with going down to like,
he's not. He's getting his shots.
He's not going to get like 7-8 shots a game. He's going to get more than that. DeAndre Ayton also is making max money. And like we've seen with Ayton that when he's not getting touches on offense, he just kind of neglects other parts of the game. And I think a big part of making the Ayton thing work is keeping him satisfied and keeping him engaged. And the way you do that is by giving him touches.
Agreed.
Are his little hook shots and like fading mid-range things like annoying? Yes, but that's just who he is.
He hit.
You got to live with that.
So
he hits them, right? You got to live with that when it comes to him. So there are a lot of players that will need the ball and need touches. So like what we just said, Chauncey is going to have to figure that out.
For sure.
Before we get into the seeding prediction, since it's my team, I wrote down some goals that I want to try to like track. Hopefully we can come back to this. The number one thing is that I'm excited to see Anthony and Shaden's defensive improvement, if there's any.
Yeah.
Visually, I haven't looked at any like, I don't even know if they have any tracking stats up for preseason right now, but visually, Anthony and Shaden looked like better defenders in this preseason, and like both on ball and off ball. So I'm hoping that continues and trends forward. The next goal, I think Jeff talked about it, and I think it's the biggest one, is that all three guys can play together by the end of the year. That all three are starting. And then also, process is greater than results. I would rather us not win a game, but like play good basketball and see positive development in these guys.
You need to be
and just have Jeremy Grant, Malcolm Brogdon, and DeAndre Ayton carry us.
They be like the Magic were first half of last season, but the whole season. They need to be playing good basketball. They need to be in close games with good teams, and they're just not going to win them because good teams are going to be better than them at late game scenarios and stuff like that.
Like we've talked about like on this podcast before. I am I'm anti-tanking. I don't think tanking is a good thing for a team long term. But that being said, before you can learn how to win, you got to learn how to lose. And the Blazers this season, whether they, win 30 games or whether they win 15, it's going to matter a lot with how those games look and how this team plays and if they can form a bit of a chemistry and an identity. Because if Simons and Scoot and Shaden, if they can all like figure out a way to play together and make it make sense, I think that's a huge success for this Blazers team.
Yes.
If Ayton can stay engaged the whole season, kind of bounce back defensively, that would be a huge success. Even if they flip Jeremy Grant halfway through the season for more picks or more assets or whatever, I think that would still be a huge success because I think you maximized him as an asset within this own team. Or if you keep him on the team and he plays well, defends well, whatever.
Yeah.
I think what you just said, the process will matter a lot.
Yes, 100%. And it's one of those things where if all three of those guys can play together, and then Ayton shows that he's, can be a starting, like obviously he can be a starting center, but he wants to be the Portland starting center, and he fits with these guys, and his motor seems to be improved. The only weakness, we have Robert Williams and Malcolm Brogdon and Matisse Thybulle off the bench. That's a solid bench. The only weakness is your power forward at that point. Like you said, like in this instance, like you said, you're going to trade Grant. Grant's
he's probably going to get traded.
He's a 1.5 year deal. Like, you know what I mean? Like he's only going to be here for a little bit. No way he spends his whole contract in Portland. But there's a lot of power forwards in next year's draft. Like if all three of these guys show they can play together, Portland's 1 or 2 pieces away from like flipping this rebuild around quickly. They're not in a Detroit position or what Orlando was in or what Houston was in when they had no talent, when their star left. Like they are 1 or 2 pieces away from actually being a solid core. They already are a solid core, but I mean like OKC level core. Like we look at OKC level, and
for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we like you said, we were talking about it before the show, but with the Bill Simmons saying OKC's a sleeper team, people have been talking about OKC's core for years now. About how well they've been built. You know what I mean?
That's just so stupid. Like we'll just take a second to talk about that. Like the Ringer overall, I've never liked that much personally. But Bill Simmons especially, he just like annoys me because he's late to everything. Like the OKC are a sleeper up next team. It's like people have been talking about the Thunder young core for like 2 years at this point, raving about it. So I don't know.
Yeah. And I think the Blazers are 1 or 2 pieces away from that.
Yeah.
Let's get this seeding position. 14th or 15th seed.
I think it's more like 12 to 15 for me. I think 12 is within the realm of possibility. I wouldn't bet on it. I'd probably say like 14, 15 is my guess, but I don't know. I think 12 is possible.
Yeah, I also have
13 to 15 actually, probably.
Yeah.
Like
I don't
they're. I want to look at these like last year's standings. Where are these?
The teams below them last year were the Rockets and Spurs. The teams directly above them were Jazz and Mavs.
Yeah.
I
I could
would
see the
bet
Jazz
on
actually
13
being
or
worse than
14.
them.
Same. Or I could see the Rockets being worse than the Blazers too.
I can't. They have too
Yeah.
many vets and they have a good coach.
True. I also think the
Yeah, but
Blazers,
the
like
Blazers
have
have a good amount
firepower.
of vets, though.
They've got Ayton and Grant. And Simons. Like those are three vets who I think can provide wins.
That's true.
I
think
think and
Yeah.
Scoot are good enough too. So.
I think the Rockets, though, I think
And-
they have a little bit clearer of an identity when it comes to what they're going to be doing on
True.
the floor.
Yeah.
I
Also,
will say though, Chauncey will not be afraid to bench Scoot or Shaden. So like, there will
Yeah.
be closing times where Brogdon will just close. Like he'll just close with vets, like
Yeah, which
Brogdon,
I think is-
Anthony, Matisse, Jeremy, Aiden, and we might win games.
that
like,
starting five
that's
can
it.
close games out. So,
Yeah, for
yeah.
sure.
Any more
Let's-
thoughts on Portland's
No, let's get into the
No,
next
I
one. The
probably
Utah
talked too much
Jazz.
about them.
No,
Utah
we're good.
Jazz?
Utah Jazz last year finished 37-45 as the 12 seed. I have the rotation if you want me to say it.
Go for it.
All right, so I'm going to do it just by guards and forwards because this team is going to have really weird lineups out there. They do not have a singular actual point guard on the roster. So the guard rotation is going to be some culmination. Don't know where it's going to be all, but Jordan Clarkson, Colin Sexton, THT, and Keontae George. And that'll be the 4 guards on the roster.
I think Chris Dunn will play.
Oh, I didn't even. Oh, he's not listed on the cap sheet right now.
Hmm.
What the hell?
Chris
Wait,
Dunn. I think Chris Dunn will definitely play. I think
Yes, Chris Dunn will play. He was good last year for them.
Yeah.
And then for wings, the starting small forward will be Laurie or power forward, depending where they want to run. If they want to start John Collins alongside Laurie, they could start next to each other. And then at the 5, it's going to be Walker Kessler and Kelly Olynyk. And then wing, more deep, like the wing bench pieces, both size starters, Ochai Agbaji, Taylor Hendricks, and I think there's actually probably a chance that Bryce Sensabaugh plays as well because he was just drafted, so probably going to want to give their rookie some run.
Yeah.
I have some worries about this team. The playmaking, I do not know where it's going to come from.
That's my worry too.
Keontae George has looked good, but not a true point guard prospect, more of a combo guard. So where does that playmaking come from? They have no point guard on the roster, and they literally fell off a map last season when they traded away their point guard in Mike Conley. So that's probably my biggest worry. And then on top of that is, can Laurie repeat what he did last year? I believe he can because he was so efficient, and most of his numbers didn't come from like ISO scoring or self-creation. A lot of it was finishing plays and catch and shoot and stuff like that. So
yeah, and the way Utah plays, like it fits Laurie really well. And even though he was getting a lot of catch and shoot shots and finishing plays, I felt like it was in diverse ways.
yes,
Like he's able to score from everywhere on the floor, off the dribble, obviously in simple ways. He's not getting a bag, but off the dribble, catch and shoot.
He's
pull
bag
up.
tough.
I will say though,
We-
near the end of the year, after they traded away their guards, even though they fell off a cliff, I was impressed. Laurie did show a little bit improved, like self-creation. So I expect to see a little bit more of that this year.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to be able to carry an offensive load.
No,
Like,
there's a
my note
ceiling.
is Laurie shrugged for this team. It's like, that's how I view him.
That's kind of a similar thing I worry about is like there's an obvious ceiling on a Laurie Markkanen centered offense. There just is. Like as efficient and as good as Laurie was last year, I don't think he can be the number one guy on a team that makes like a 7th, like an 8th seed or higher. Maybe they make the play-in. we don't know. Like, I think their defense could be pretty good. I mean, Walker Kessler as their defensive anchor, that he's good enough for them to be a top 15 defense just alone. And you've got other defenders in the team who kind of can be, they can guard like occasionally. John Collins, his defense is like a year-to-year thing. We saw in 2021 how his defense really ramped up, especially come playoff time. But then last year, his defense just looked like really bad. So maybe a new situation will kind of re-engage him on that side of the ball. Chris Dunn has always been one of the best guard defenders in the NBA. I know in 2020, that year with the Bulls, I thought he was like the best guard defender in the NBA. He was so good that year. And like, I think he can carry a lot of that forward. Colin Sexton.
Can't believe Chris Dunn was the number 5 overall pick. Come on, Ryan. What is your team doing here?
Well, okay. Okay. Tibbs saw Chris Dunn and Jamal Murray, right? And he thought that Jamal Murray was too much of a project, and they wanted to win right away, and they thought Chris Dunn will help them win right away. And
there you go.
We drafted Chris Dunn. He played 1 year.
Same reason you drafted Jarrett Culver, number 6.
We traded Jimmy Butler. We traded Chris Dunn out the door for Jimmy Butler. I was high on Jarrett Culver too. I mean, okay, Jarrett Culver is different because we actually were locked in to get Darius Garland until the Cavs changed their mind last minute and picked him right ahead of us. So we missed out on Darius Garland and we scrambled and we're like, okay, Jarrett Culver is the guy. That's what happened there.
So funny.
They couldn't have traded back, give him a couple minutes to.
Yeah, no.
No, they cannot.
What is the panic button?
Chris Dunn.
Yeah. I think this is just a team that needs to find an identity next season and develop the pieces. I think they need to be bad. I think they were a little bit too good last year. Surprisingly. They need to be bad this year. Yeah. And I think they recognized that at the deadline. That's why they traded all their good players, a lot of their good players. And a lot of these guys, I think, are prime candidates to be that could get traded again.
Yep.
Yes. Well, a lot of their rookies, like throughout the preseason, I felt like Hendrickson wasn't getting a lot of minutes. They have a lot of power forwards playing.
They do have a lot of forwards. Like, yeah, Kelly Olynyk is going to be like probably their backup center, but even he is more of a power forward if you ask me, with like the passing and shooting he has, and like the defensive limitations. So, yeah, I don't know. I think they could really use like a bona fide offensive franchise cornerstone that's other than Lowry. Like they need a guard. Like imagine Scoot on this team right now. Like imagine how different we'd be talking about them. He would fit this roster perfect. But they were too good last season, and I thought they were fun to watch. Like I liked that they were good. But ultimately it would have been, and I would have been better for the team overall if they had just been bad and they had a lottery pick. So yeah, I think this team will be bad again. I just don't know where the playmaking is going to come from and like who the number 2 option is other than Laurie.
Yeah. Overall, I agree with like both of what you guys have been saying. Like the 2 option, huge question. The playmaking, a huge question, and the identity, like all of that, we have no idea where it's coming from. And right now, with what they have, Keontae is the key. Like Keontae George is the key. Like if he can show that he can play make even a little bit, or he can be not necessarily a 1. I don't want to like expect anybody to think that he's going to come out and show he could be a 1 option.
Yeah.
But if he can look like he can run an NBA offense even a little bit, that helps them like so much in their like process towards finding a team identity, because you can at least have like a pseudo playmaker and test lineups. You know what I mean? Like if Keontae George shows enough playmaking chops, you can just plan ahead to, draft a playmaker in future drafts, but you can still put Laurie and other people in positions so they're not just like developing incorrectly for the way you want your team to be built.
Yeah. They've also got a great coach in Will Hardy.
Yes.
As a guy who can kind of help them find an identity too. And I think if there is a coach that can maximize this roster and squeeze all the juice out of it, there is, I think Will Hardy is definitely capable of doing that. Colin Sexton, I think I'd like to see him kind of be that number 2. I still have a little bit of stock and a little bit of faith in Colin Sexton and his game. And I remember last year, after the Jazz blew it up, everyone thought that Colin Sexton was going to be getting all the touches in the world and averaging 30. And that's not what happened. I mean, he had some injury stuff last year for sure. And Lauri was just really good. So that didn't end up coming to fruition, but I do want to see Colin Sexton be featured in the offense a good bit because I think that he's got a lot of NBA life in him. And I would hate him. I would hate for Colin Sexton to be one of those players that just never figures it out and doesn't really get a lot of opportunity. Like I want to see him on the Jazz for a full year, get a lot of shots, and play well. But I don't have a lot of other thoughts in this team. Walker Kessler is like really freaking good, and I think I think he'll be better this season. I think he'll be better on offense too. He already has more ball skills right now than Gobert does. Like it wouldn't surprise me if the whole Gobert shooting threes thing. Like I wrote a whole article on it, and like as much as it's like a fun thing, the likelihood of that actually being like an effective look is just super low. Kessler, I don't feel that way with. I actually think that Kessler has some pretty good ball skills, and I'd like him to take a few jump shots this year just to see what it looks like and how that comes along.
That I can agree with.
Yeah,
100%.
So,
in terms of seeding, I have them a little bit higher than the Blazers. I think they can crack the play-in. I have them at 10 at the highest.
Yeah.
10 to 14, 10 to 13, like
I've got them 11 to 14. I don't think 10 is possible just because they'd have to be better than at least 2 of like the Mavericks or Pelicans or Thunder. Or I don't know if
I could see them in like worst case scenario. I'm not high on the Mavs. Like I think there's a high chance this Mavs team like fizzles out and like low key sucks.
Same.
Luka sweepstakes time soon.
Like
this Mavs team. This Mavs team is like a sprained ankle away from either of their guards to like going on a 0-6, 0-7 streak at any point in the season.
Pelican style.
Yeah, Pelican style.
And exactly. Pelicans, they have every single player is injury prone on their team. And Trey Murphy's out for a long time. Valanciunas looks like he's I'm not high on them. I'm high on them and they're healthy.
The Pels also, they've sucked in this preseason. They have not looked. Yeah, Zion's looks good, but everybody else, they haven't looked good as a unit. As a team, they look on. They need to trade. Pages.
They need to just restart.
Yeah. They need to trade. Yeah. They need multiple trades.
They need to get role players because they're another one of those teams. Which this is getting a little bit off track, but that's what we're here for, honestly. Similar to the Thunder. I think the Thunder are going to run into this issue soon. They have drafted so many guys that they're trying to develop all at the same time that it's just they're just all butting heads. Like you can't develop. Let me look at the Pelicans team here really quick. You can't develop Herb Jones, Dyson Daniels, Kira Lewis, Jordan Hawkins, Trey Murphy, and EJ Liddell all at the same time. No. And they already traded Nickeil Alexander-Walker away because of that.
And I think they're a great example of a rushed rebuild where they got Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram, and Zion Williamson was really goddamn good, really early. They should have
just matched Lonzo's contract.
Yes, and they went with vets to try to win now, and now there's like as we can see, CJ McCollum got there, and like there was obviously some communication mishaps. You have vets that are struggling to talk to like young guys, like obviously age differences, and like it's just been a problem. And I don't think they necessarily need to completely blow it up, and I think they keep their stars. But you're right, a retool, trade these role players, bring in some new play styles. Maybe it'll give
Yeah.
Zion and Brandon Ingram a refresher. 'Cause,
Yeah, and like while we're on the Pelicans, we talk so much about how if they're injured, it's gonna be the same thing again. They're already injured. Trey
Yeah.
Murphy is already hurt for at least the first month of the season. And
Yeah.
that could be 2 months. It could be December until we see him play again. So
yeah. And that's the
it's
thing. I'm just starting to lose faith in this team. Like I feel like when I feel like when I talked about the Pelicans on this pod before, I was a lot higher on them. But throughout this preseason
I
and really just looking at it, I just
this preseason has they don't look like they play together as a group, and it looks like on defense they're all on different pages as far as what's going on. There are communication issues. You can see there's body language issues with CJ McCollum and Ingram, and it looks bad.
Yeah, they need. I think the problem is they tried to build around, like we said, they tried to build around too many people at once. They, at the end of this season, if this doesn't work out, trade the guys, man. Like,
Yeah.
you don't trade Zion. He was your number one overall pick. He was a generational prospect. He is that good when he is healthy. You take the bet that he's going to be healthy. That is what you do. It's the same bet that the Philly took on Embiid. Like, we're gonna wait until you get this, you get your health satisfied stuff. Okay, like we're gonna wait, and eventually it's gonna pay off, and it did. But clearly, there's a disconnect between, and honestly, this feels like the Philly situation. There's a disconnect in the play styles between the two star players. Both of them need the ball in their hands. Both of them want to do their own thing. You have a guy in CJ McCollum who also wants the ball in his hands and has had a complete downswing in efficiency and career wise. It's just like that just doesn't work out. But back to the Jazz.
all of that is the reason I think the Utah Jazz can be better than the Pelicans.
Yes, exactly. The Pelicans are going to be the worst. Hot take. We're going to just put them all out on Twitter. I'm going to start tweeting the most obscene things, just not respond to anyone underneath them. I'm going to be like the Heat are going to be the worst team in the NBA, even if they're healthy. Yeah, I'm going to just seeding prediction then, because I just think this team is just like we've said. There's two main question marks, and if they don't work out, I think this team could be good, though. I'm really high on Taylor Hendricks as a complimentary role-playing type piece that you can acquire. It's like my basketball fantasy is big, lengthy, defensive big men that can play help side. So, yeah, for prediction-wise, 12 to 15 seed, same place they were last year.
Yeah.
Probably more towards 13 to 15.
Yeah. Well, I think we should get into the Thunder then.
Yeah.
I can read off the rotation.
Sure.
So their starting lineup is going to be pretty fun. It's going to be Josh Gideon Shea at 1 or 2. I don't really know or care who's the point guard and shooting guard. It doesn't really matter. At the 3, it's going to be Lou Dort. At the 4, Jalen Williams, J-Dub, the wing Jalen Williams. At the center, I think they're going to give that to Chet Holmgren right away. And then off the bench is where it gets a little bit tricky because I don't think their bench unit is that set in stone at all. It's a little bit weird. So Trey Mann, I think, has kind of fallen out of the rotation, oddly, and I think he's still really good. I kind of want him to be on the Wolves, actually. They've got Kenrich Williams. They've got Ousmane Dieng, Davis Bertans.
Vasilihio Micic is going to play.
They've got him
30-year-old
right now.
He's the Euroleague MVP, right?
No, that's the guy on the Kings.
That's the guy.
Okay.
Vasenkov.
Vasenkov. He's got a sick name.
They've got Jay Will, the big Jalen Williams. Jack White. Kaysen Wallace is probably going to play.
Yeah.
Pokashevsky is on the team still.
He's hurt. He's hurt, I think.
Oh, he is? Okay.
Yeah, I think he's hurt.
Well, whatever. I don't know. Whatever. The starting lineup is pretty set in stone. The bench is where it gets dicey, but this Thunder team, a lot of people are just penciling them in, I think, for a playoff spot. Like they're going to take this giant leap forward. And I don't see that. I still think this team is a lot to figure out. I think they're still like at least a year away
I'm still
for
not a
making
fan of
that
their
jump.
size. I'm still not a fan of their size.
Yeah, I'm not either.
J-Dub at the 4 is
I love
I
J
still
Dub. He's
agree.
really good, but he's a 3 in my opinion.
he's a 2 or a 3.
I don't think he's a 4. And Chet, like, it's hard. Chet is a really good player, obviously, and it wouldn't surprise me if you won Rookie of the Year, but it's hard to anchor a defense like that as a rookie at the center full time. Like
When you're not a big center.
when you're not a big
Yeah.
center, it's really hard to do that. So I don't know. Like,
We'll see.
yeah, see.
For some reason I felt like I saw like a rumor about Giddey coming off the bench like a few weeks ago. I feel like that was bullshit, but
I don't think I don't think I'll come.
I
off the
will-
bench.
I think at some point though, like we're talking about one of those guards. Well, Lou Dort should probably get shipped off at some point if if that's the number one thing.
His
But-
contract. The problem is his contract. Lou Dort is a guy who's going to only be wanted by contending teams because he's well, actually no, I'm not going to say that. But contending teams are the guys that are going to want him. He's a 24-year-old, big body. He can play defense and shoot threes. That's what he does: catch and shoot and play
Yeah.
defense. Contending teams are going to want that. But his contract is $15 million. Like it goes up to $17 million soon. Like that's a
Yeah,
lot of
it's not-
money to match for like role players.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So it's like they still have a lot of questions, and I think they're going to have to move on from Dort or move one of those guys to the bench because I do agree they're going to run into some issues. But then also they don't have a backup big. Who are you going to start at the 4?
Jalen Williams is their backup big right now, and he's like 6'7", 6'6".
I think J Dub is a better.
No,
four than
Jalen
them.
Williams 6'10".
Yeah,
But like I have more faith in J Dub than I do in Jalen Williams. You know,
You're
at
right,
the
you're
4.
right.
So it's like, in terms of their roster, I think they're making a good decision.
Also,
Like,
we
they don't
forgot
have
to
a lot
say
to work with.
we forgot to say this. Isaiah Joe. He will.
Oh, I
yeah.
say Joe.
Yes.
he can shoot the lights out. He'll
He's
play.
gonna play.
Yeah.
God,
He will play.
Philly
Amazing.
fans should be disgusted. They gave him away for nothing. I think it was cash considerations. I
Yeah,
think.
that they
Yeah.
dumped
It
him.
was disgusting.
and- yeah.
I
What else?
have one question for you guys. I have a couple questions actually with this team.
Yeah.
So last year, Shea was the obvious one,
Yeah.
but there was obvious development with a lot of the other options on the team.
Mhm.
Do you guys see somebody being the certified 2 option on this team by the end of the year, or is it still going to be a develop for committee?
I think J Dub will.
Yeah.
I think J Dub will because he can attack the rim and he's actually pretty okay mid-range shooter as well. And
Yeah.
the 3-point shot can go up and down a little bit, but I have hope that it'll stay steady. in my
Yeah, I'd probably also say J Dub. I mean, I like Giddey, and I think Giddey could be that also, but J Dub I think can score in a larger variety of ways, and I think long term, I think I would look at J Dub to be kind of the 2 option on this team.
Yeah.
So it would make sense to kind of let him do that right now. But moving away from like the pessimism or whatever, or why we think this team won't be as good as like a lot of people think, there is a lot of potential for this team to really boom this season and go way up. And that a lot of that falls on Shea Gilgeous-Alexander.
Yes.
Last year, Shea went from like a borderline all-star level player to like a legit superstar, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Shea as like I don't think there are 5 better isolation scorers than Shea right now. I just don't think there are. I think Shea 1-on-1 is almost unguardable with the way he moves. He kind of has that Luka thing a little bit where he's got that herky-jerky style of play where he plays slow, and the only way you can guard him is if you have like elite anticipation and discipline as a defender. And there just aren't a lot of guys who can really keep up with him, especially for a full game.
Yeah.
I think Shea is like the 13th best player in the whole NBA. Like right now, that's how good he is.
Shea, I could go on about Shea for so long because what makes him, I think he's someone that's even harder to guard isolation than Luka
Yeah.
because he has the athleticism that Luka does not. Shea is a weird example of someone that has learned to play with such patience and control, but he's actually super athletic and he's super quick. So it's
Yeah.
like even if you have elite anticipation, it's like you got to be more athletic than him still.
Yeah,
And
because
that really runs into an issue.
yeah, because like
with
Shea
defenders.
can shake and slither in around defenders the way Luka just can't with Luka's like
Yes.
bigger frame.
Yeah.
He has really twitchy. He's a very twitchy athlete. He has
Yeah,
twitchy hips.
and those guys are
And
hard.
acrobatic.
It's hard to guard. It's they like the way Shea kind of has like the awkward boxer syndrome a little bit, where it's like he moves in a way that just most players just don't do it. So
Yes.
defenders don't really know how to react to a guy like that. And that just makes him deadly. And we saw in FIBA too, like against Team USA, like Team USA tried a bunch of different defenders on Shea, and just like none of them could do anything. Like good defenders too, like Mikal Bridges, Shea was cooking him. Jaren Jackson, Shea was cooking him. Josh Hart didn't even matter.
And I also want to give credit to Shea's playmaking side of the game because he also creates some of the most open looks and the highest rate of open looks in the league.
Yeah.
And I do think as the OKC talent covers the ground a little bit, people are going to realize like, oh shit, Shea's just not a scorer. He's a floor general. Like he's an offensive engine. And we saw that a little bit this year. And I think people give him some credit, but the looks that Shea just develops for everybody are crazy. And I really like that you brought up the awkward boxing thing, Ryan.
Yeah.
Because one of my favorite sayings in all sports is that goofy wins. Goofy is good. And that's because it's like if a defender has never seen something before, how are they going to defend it?
Yeah.
Like that's like a lot of times like why there's good defenders in the league. It's because they're really high IQ players. They've defended all these things. They've watched a lot of film, so they know what's going to happen. And then plus they have some natural gifts, right?
Yeah.
If you're not, there's no catalog of what Shea has ever done. He's like some of the shit he does is like the first of the first.
He's hard to guard, and it's like he's so crafty. Like you don't know what he's gonna do. It's like have you guys ever played tried to play basketball against a friend who has never played ever before, and it's like low-key kind of hard to score against them?
Yeah.
That's kind of how it feels like. That's how it feels like when I'm watching Shea. It's like defenders just don't really know what to do. So like I think Shea alone is enough to carry this team to like 35 wins, almost as like a baseline for what they could be. But whether they, bottom out at 35 wins or make the jump to 45 wins, I think kind of depends on the others. We'll see how good Chet Holmgren is right away. Like,
looked good in preseason. Very good defense. He's going to be really good on defense, and the offense has a clear capability he can be a corner shooter. And I think you have good enough ISO scores where the frame screen setting that might be an issue. I don't think will be as big of an issue as it might be on some other teams.
Yeah. We should talk about how Chet could open up the floor for Shea. Like he could make the world so much easier. And we just went on this 10-minute rant about how Shea makes the game look so easy.
They could play 5 out with this team and just let Shea or Goody cook.
They did. They
down
played
low.
They played the Bucks in the preseason. That's what they did. They played 4 out with Chet at the top of the key, kind of. And they also played a lot of 5 out where he was sitting in the corner. They have, if this team's shooting, the perimeter shooting needs to take a step.
Yes.
They need to probably take a higher volume, and they need to be better at it. But I think they will. I think they've trended upwards. I think you can track that trend going upwards in the 3-point shooting department.
Yep.
But
I still think this team is at least a year out from making a push into being a dangerous team.
Next season, these assets need to start getting cashed in a little bit.
That's what I was about to say. I think there is a consolidation move coming. Maybe it's this season. Maybe it's next summer. Maybe it's the season after that.
Whether it's for a player or we have the 12th pick of the draft and the team that got a top 3 pick does not wants to move back a ton and we throw them an absolutely ridiculous offer to move up in the draft or something like that, like
Yeah.
they need to do something because these picks aren't doing them any good. And I'm not going to mention the player's name, but they just did another thing where they brought in a bunch of picks for a BS trade. So
Yeah.
These picks are great and all, but you're not getting it's the
There's no
value
product
of these
that's coming
picks
from
deteriorate over time. Okay. Like, especially when you are a good drafting team. This team is every single draft they've came out with one at least starting level rotation player.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Even last year when like their marquee draft player Chet went out, Jalen Williams was like
Yes,
rookie of the year runner up, and like if you ask a lot of people think he should have won it. That this team's ability to find talent in the draft, and have them be good players right away it's very impressive.
Yeah. And I also think there's still a chance with the new lottery that they get lucky, dude. Like they might not have to trade anybody, and it sounds so stupid, but we've seen New Orleans and Memphis in one draft. Both were like not even in the. I don't think either of them were the top 8 in odds, right, or top 7, and they both finished.
I think
they were both. Are you talking about the Ja and Zion?
Yeah, they were both they both jumped.
Okay, yes, I don't want to get all conspiracy theorist with that draft.
No, I'm gonna say that is because of the new rules.
The NBA wanted to show the teams that the new rules were gonna make things different, and I think
they traded Anthony Davis and then got the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah,
The league wanted to reward New Orleans for giving Los Angeles a superstar, and they're like, here's Zion. Here you go.
Hey, I'll run with the lottery's rig thing because the league didn't give us. They left us one ball short this year because they wanted to run. They wanted to run Damian Lillard out of Portland and run him into a bigger market. All right,
and of course Wemby goes to Spurs. Like that's
a famous French history.
Yeah.
The greatest big man prospect in the last 25 years since Tim Duncan.
Yeah.
I wonder who's winning. Honestly, I'm watching that lottery and I'm like, I literally see, Detroit's at 5. They dropped all the way. Oh, Houston's at 4. I'm like,
I knew San Antonio.
I was like, San Antonio
through it, dude. Once we hit top 3, I was going through it, dude. I was my heart, dude. Once I saw the news that we were 1 number away, I actually like fell apart. And looking back at it, like I didn't even like realize I was like Victor's better than I thought he was.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That just hurts.
Because I think they roll the lottery. I think they roll it for 1, and when it gets to top 3, I think they roll it for 1, 2, 3 in order. And then they reveal them the opposite direction. I think.
Yeah.
I'm not completely sure. But what do you guys think for seeding predictions for them?
For seeding, I think 6 is their ceiling. Like I think there definitely is a world where it can happen, but I'm not betting on it. I think their floor is 11.
I agree.
So 6 to 11, but if I had to bet on anything, I'd bet on them finishing kind of in the bottom of that range.
Yep, I agree. I'll probably have I think it'll be 7 to 11.
Yeah, I agree. I have them 7 to 11. I think with the other top 6 seeds in the West, there's a lot of teams that have bets, and it's just so much easier in predictions to bet on these bets because there's a correlation with experience in winning in the NBA, and like we said, especially that bench for OKC, and even that starting lineup, it's Dort and Shea that really have experience, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like there's not a lot of experience on the roster. So, and development, like I always preach, development isn't linear. So we could see J-Dub have a sophomore slump, or you know what I mean? And I'm not praying on that, but it's a possibility. So
yeah,
there's still some worries with this team.
Yep, without a doubt. Are we ready to move into the Timberwolves now?
Yeah.
All right. So I can just give the rotation off the top of my head. It's going to be Mike Conley at the 1, Anthony Edwards at 2, Jaden McDaniels at the 3, Karl-Anthony Towns at the 4, and Gobert at the 5.
Yep.
Off the bench, Shake Milton has that backup point guard spot locked in.
Sure.
him and Jordan McLaughlin, I think will take that as injuries happen and as Mike Conley will probably rest a few games because of his age. Nikhil Alexander-Walker as backup shooting guard. Troy Brown Jr. as maybe a backup 3, even though I don't think he'll play right away to start the season. I think they'll run like a 9-man rotation. Kyle Anderson is going to play a lot, and Naz Reid is going to play a lot too.
Man, this team. Before we let Ryan talk about this team, because I know Ryan's gonna be yapping a lot about.
I've got thoughts, of course.
Yeah. I was high on this team last year, and then it all fell apart because Karl-Anthony Towns got hurt, and Rudy Gobert had like the biggest regression I've ever seen from a year-to-year standpoint. I am very optimistic about this team. I am super high on Anthony Edwards' development. I think Mike Conley is really good and super underrated. We were talking about point guard rankings, and people are like talking about how Mike Conley is at the bottom area of that. And I was telling them they were absolutely crazy, but they did not want to hear that.
Yeah.
And I think these team is literally just perfect role players at each position. They have a perfect wing, literal perfect wing in Jaden McDaniels, because even though we're high on the development of Jaden McDaniels, if he doesn't get any better than he is towards the end of last season, that is a perfect player to have on your roster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you have a guy like Kyle Anderson who can handle the ball, he can play make, he can rebound, he can play multiple positions. He could probably play 1 through 4, honestly, if you need him to. He's not really a shooting guard, but he could play the shooting guard position. And then you have a guy like Naz Reid, who's a backup big who can play spot minutes and be a microwave guy, high energy, grab rebounds, play with a lot of, like Bobby Portis type. I always say that he's the Timberwolves Bobby Portis type of player.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then they got a guy like Troy Brown Jr. who's looked good in preseason, shooting the ball and moving around and being a switchable defender. And
yeah,
I think this team has good depth. And I think, honestly, the Timberwolves front office, outside of this Rudy Gobert trade, since they've lacked assets because of that trade, I think they've done a really good job acquiring talent that fits the roster.
I agree. Yeah.
With the lack of assets.
Yeah. And I think they've done that in the draft too.
Yes.
Leonard Miller. Yes, that's my number one thing is Leonard Miller with a bunch of question marks. I want to know your thoughts on Leonard Miller because he has impressed me in the preseason, and I was really high on him coming into the draft.
Yeah. This season, I don't think there's any path to him getting rotational minutes. I think he's going to spend a lot of time in Iowa with the Iowa Wolves just because this team has lofty expectations. Like it just does. The clock is ticking for this team.
Yep.
When you have a player like Anthony Edwards, right, there's a clock that comes with that. Mm-hmm. And by trading for Rudy Gobert when they did, they accelerated their clock by at least 2 or 3 years. And that's not, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but
no.
As we saw last year was a weird season. Last year, like the Wolves were disappointing by definition, yes, but I wouldn't even call it that as much as I would call last season just a weird season. And it started off being weird from the very beginning. You think about training camp. Rudy Gobert is coming in off of Eurobasket with a bad back and bad legs. Karl-Anthony Towns gets sick in training camp. At the beginning of training camp, he loses like 30 pounds, can't play at all with the rest of the team. Then when the season actually starts, Towns, grade 3 calf strain, misses 50 games. Having a player like that with that offense and that spacing and that gravity completely killed our offense, in my opinion. The Timberwolves offensively sucked last year, and a lot of that is because of a lack of shooting, a lack of spacing. Cat brings that. If not, like Cat, people can say what they want about Cat. If absolutely nothing else, Cat brings spacing.
Yeah,
and Cat brings 3-point shooting.
Cat brings a lot to offenses.
Cat is
there's a difference between being a percentage shooter and someone that actually moves defenses, and Cat moves defenses. You know what I mean? You have to respect him. He's not He's not a big you're just gonna let shoot up there.
No,
And
his skill set as a big is dynamic enough where like he changes the way defenses play the
Yes.
Timberwolves. Like before Gobert, Cat. I've seen some Timberwolves lineups that were truly disgusting, like some of the worst rosters I've ever seen. Truly, like, but Cat alone was enough to make the Wolves a top 10 defense year after year because of that gravity and because of how talented of a scorer he was. So not having Cat last year, without a doubt, contributed to some offensive issues. And then when Cat finally does get back during the most important stretch of the season, the entire team gets the flu, and players are throwing up at halftime, and Anthony Edwards just looks like a shell of himself.
Oh yeah, wasn't it like Ant was going into the tunnel to throw up in between like timeouts and stuff?
Yeah, just a nightmare situation.
That's obviously horrible. I just think the Timberwolves had such a funny season with like stuff that happened to them. Like obviously growing up for you, Ryan, it was not funny. But for everyone outside of it, hilarious.
And that McDaniels punching the wall and breaking his hand is the perfect representation of last season, because it wasn't all bad luck either. The Timberwolves repeatedly shot themselves in the foot last year. Yeah. The talent is not the question on this team, if you ask me. I think this team right now has more depth and more talent than any Timberwolves team in franchise history.
Yep.
I have never seen a team on paper from man 1 and Anthony Edwards to man number 15 and a guy like Luka Garza, who's got some game to him himself. This team has talent. Yeah. It's undeniable. It's just, can they maximize this talent and can they all just make it work? And this is a big year for the Timberwolves because of that. This is a do or die season. They need to make it work. They need to show something. If they need to at least win a playoff series, that's the thing.
They need to have their Memphis Grizzlies 2022 season. They need to.
Yeah, they need to refine that identity. Cat and Ant need to find that chemistry that made them so elite in 2022. There's a lot to figure out.
I think I'm not worried about the Ant and Cat chemistry coming back. I think that'll be a given. I think their play styles work so well together. I just am more intrigued about the Cat Rudy connection and the Ant Rudy connection. And we saw the Ant Rudy connection improve, obviously. And I believe Edwards said that this summer was a focal point. He went to France and trained with Rudy, I believe, to like work on some things. But it's like, due to injury, we didn't get to see a lot of those three offensively together, and also probably due to injury, it didn't look good when we saw it. You know what I mean? So that's the worry with me. Is it's more of where does Rudy fit with these guys, because that still hasn't been answered, and that needs to be answered this season.
The Rudy piece is what makes it all difficult, right? Because Rudy, like what you just said, Jeff. Rudy had a major step back last season as far as production. A lot of that, in my opinion, does come with the injury he kind of had carrying over from Eurobasket. I also think a lot of that just comes with being on a new team, a different system. Like Chris Finch and Quinn Snyder run two completely different styles of offense.
Yes.
And it's hard for a player like Gobert, who for so many years had everything given to him on a silver platter, have to adjust. It's difficult for a guy like that.
Yeah.
Defensively, the Cat and Gobert pairing worked really well. That's what you can look at and be like, okay, we can hang our hats on this at least a little bit. That defensively, it's going to be at least okay, if not really good. Because I think with Anthony Edwards' defensive development and Jaden McDaniels being the best wing defender in the NBA, and you've got Rudy anchoring the defense down low, I think the defense is going to be really good for this team, and I think it's going to be like a top 5 defense, honestly.
Yeah.
It's just the offense and the way that all kind of figures out.
Cat does project to be much better of a help side defender than a one-on-one big defender. He's never good at, like, he has a really big wingspan, but he's really bad. He gets like the concrete feet type of stuff where, like, when he's guarding a big, he does not keep moving his feet, and he gets fouls and stuff like that because of it.
Yeah.
So I'll say that I am optimistic about that pairing, and I think it was good in spot minutes last season.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Matthias?
Oh, I think that a lot of people judged Cat's defense at the 4 pretty prematurely last year, because I feel like, especially watching him in the Olympics, a lot of his lateral movement is back from that calf injury, because I actually, like you said, I think he projects better as a weak side and more of a 4 defender than a 5. And I think people just didn't give him time coming back from a grade 3 calf strain, which literally is like, that's just gonna,
it pretty much tore.
Yeah, it pretty much tore. And calves are activated like every single time you move on a basketball court. Like that can act up like in a snap. It's
especially for a guy who's 7 foot tall and 240 pounds. Like having lower body strength is a huge part of the game defensively and offensively. Like, yeah, Cat is the best shooter on the team, but you also want to get Cat involved down low, because as a post-up player, 1-on-1, he's also super effective. I like him cutting to the basket. His pump and go game was what made him so good in 2022. So all that stuff matters a lot with him. And not having that lower body strength clearly was affecting him in that Denver series. I think we saw more than ever. But the Denver series is also interesting because I think by games 4 and 5 of the Denver series, I think the Timberwolves and Cat figured out a lot, and they showed some flashes of some real good things, especially defensively. They threw Cat on Jokic, and I thought Cat did a fine job, honestly. Like, as there's no answer to Jokic, there's no slowing him down, but I think I think Cat did a good job for what you could possibly ask him to do. That's just me, and I think the offense will be back, and I don't know. Yeah. This team it's weird. I
like both expect them to be really good, but I also would not be surprised if they were mid again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They have a really wide range in my seeding prediction.
Yeah. Yeah, and we can get into that too. But I think there's Anthony Edwards, I think, is a player that can single-handedly move the needle for this team when it comes to the playoff time. In my opinion, what a successful season looks like for the Timberwolves is a playoff series win. I don't care who it's against. I don't care if it's against the Kings, the Clippers, the Suns, the Nuggets, whoever. I think they need to win a playoff series. They need to make it out of the first round, because another first round flail out, I think, would be really bad, personally.
Yeah, and I obviously there's context, and I know you're saying that as a blanket thing, but I also would like to see them have some regular season success. Like, if they finished as a 5 seed and lost to, say, the Suns or the Lakers, who was a 4 seed in the first round or something, like, the West is so good. I wouldn't put too much on like winning. It's just like winning one series. You want them to compete against winning teams. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to. They don't need to. If they do face a good team early in the first round, they don't want to get ran out the gym in 5. You want to lose in 6 or 7 if you're actually facing a contender. And if they're not facing a contender, a series win is expected.
But even then, with a contender, it's like the reason that this team accelerated the clock the way they did is because they want to be able to beat a Phoenix or a Los Angeles. Because if you can't beat one of those teams, then it's like, why did you do the deal in the first place?
Yeah. I think as of right now, I would not bet on them beating either of those teams. But
the Clippers, I would. But
I'm talking about the Lakers.
Lakers. I don't know.
Yeah, Clippers, I could see. Yeah,
it's premature to make these predictions anyway. But like,
they will come back to this playoff time, and the seedings are going to look disgusting, and we'll look like idiots. So
yeah,
that's how it's going to go.
Let's do the seedings then on the Timberwolves.
Yeah,
I have them from anywhere because, like I said, I think they could have their Memphis Grizzlies year, anywhere from the 2 seed down to, I think, the 6 seed. I don't see them being in the play-in this season. It is possible, but I do not project them to be if everyone's healthy. So I'm going to say anywhere from the 2 seed to the 6 seed. I think is a realistic.
Yeah, I think for me it's anywhere from 3 to 8.
Maybe 3 actually. I'm going to say 3.
2 seed is a bit too ambitious in my opinion, because that would mean they'd have to be better than like 2 of either like Phoenix or Denver or LA or like Sacramento even. So I think 4 seed is really their ceiling. If I had to bet, I'd say 5 seed is where they finish. If I had to bet right now, and then 8th seed, I could see them that being their floor again. The West is just it's tightly packed. And sometimes you're just going to finish a little bit lower.
Yeah. I have them one notch lower. I have them at 4 to 9, kind of the same like range. The reason I have the 9 is that, again, I know we talked about how like the Pelicans have looked bad, but it's the same roster that was a 1 seed through like 29 games. So it's like I still have faith in Zion and Brandon Ingram if healthy, and we're obviously Timberwolves worst case scenario. I could see that happening. Again, I agree with you though, Ryan. If I were to bet on it, I say 5 seed.
Yeah.
I think I don't want to say the Timberwolves are in like a tier of their own in between contenders in the West and like non-contenders in the West. But like I'm definitely way more confident in the Timberwolves in terms of like the lower half of the seeding than other teams.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're a step up above like the Thunder or the Pelicans or the Mavericks. I don't think we're in that tier. I think I see that the Timberwolves and the Kings as near equals, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think the Wolves have more talent, but the Kings have more continuity and more of a cohesive feel to it. But enough Timberwolves talk. I think we can move on from the. Well, I could keep on rambling for like.
I know it's not good. We had two teams that were fans that we've talked for a while.
We could make this podcast 5 hours long if we wanted to.
Yeah, I bet Ryan would be more than happy to boot up his camera and talk about the Wolves for 7 hours a day. All right, well then let's get to the last team here in the division. The Denver Nuggets last season finished with a record of 53 and 29. Obviously, the defending champions. Rotation is going to look a little bit interesting this season. A lot of turnover. Do you have it, Ryan, or do you want me to?
I don't have it pulled up.
Okay, so the starting lineup is going to be the same as last year. Jamal Murray, KCP, Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon, sorry. And then Jokic. And then off the bench is where it really gets interesting. Their 2 main bench guys that they brought in a lot last year were Bruce Brown and Jeff Green. Both those guys are not on the roster anymore. So your backup guards are looking like Reggie Jackson and Christian Braun. Your backup forwards, combination of Zeke Naji, Julian Strawther, Peyton Watson. And then your backup bigs are Vlatko Konkar and DeAndre Jordan. But in reality, Jokic is going to play a ton of minutes, and the non-Jokic minutes are pretty much a toss-up anyways. So, I think there's literally a singular question mark is who's going to step up on the bench, and what is this bench going to be doing throughout the season?
Yeah. I think there's like a couple things with how the media has portrayed them as well. But I do want to talk about the bench. It's specifically on these young guys and the piece that Calvin Booth, who just wrote that Calvin Booth piece?
I don't remember who.
I can't remember who wrote it, but a big piece just came out, like interviewing Calvin Booth about these young guys he's drafted and why he let go of those pieces in this offseason. And they are fully investing in Braun and Watson and like all of these guys, a lot of these sophomore and junior players, and even potentially Strawther as in a rookie. So it's like
Strawther's looks insane.
He's looked really good, but it's like you're putting so much investment in these young guys to carry a bench, and like, do you guys think they can do it? I don't know. I'm a little skeptical on it.
I am pretty skeptical of it as well. I think the one advantage they do have is they have Jokic.
Yeah.
And Jokic is so good on offense that he can he's just a void. It all sucks. He just brings everyone to him and just it elevates everything.
He also he makes his teammates so much better too. That like I think even like with Peyton Watson and Strawther and Zeke Naji, them playing with Jokic just like as a baseline will make them contributing
Yeah.
pieces.
Yeah.
Like, throw them in a lineup with Jokic and MPJ, and it's like that's enough veteran like continuity with that they'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or even or Gordon, you could go a little big. Like,
yeah, Peyton Watson. It'll be fun to see him kind of have a bigger role because defensively he looks already really good for as a player, and offensively that'll have to come around. But when you're playing with Jokic and you're playing with the Nuggets spacing, it's going to be pretty easy to develop on offense.
Yeah, for sure. One thing my main concern with the bench is I am not worried about the actual players on the bench coming in and be able to produce, like we said, because the Jokic gets a lot of minutes staggered with the bench guys. He's going to run a lot of, it's going to be a lot of that facilitating from the high post. And then when the bench guys come in, I think you're going to see Jokic scoring a lot more this season. One of the things I'm just very concerned about, where is the secondary ball handling, guard ball handling, I should say, because I'm just going to, when I talk about ball handling, I'm going to ignore the Jokic existence because everyone knows that's Jokic going to have the ball in his hands. But when you have another guard, who is the other guard that can take, or player who is going to be able to, that you feel confident giving the ball in their hands in crucial moments? They had Bruce Brown last year. They felt comfortable letting Bruce Brown play backup point guard, play backup shooting guard, handle the ball, play off ball. Do they feel that Christian Brown can handle the ball?
Well,
maybe
they definitely feel like he can. I think Reggie Jackson is like a break glass in case of emergency player.
I agree.
If things are really looking rocky on that bench, and you need a player that at least will who can handle the ball, and Reggie Jackson has had his ball control issues in the past too. That's why the Clippers got rid of him, because he was turnover prone. But I think he could be a guy, and they paid him too. The Clippers just did, or the fucking
they used their
Nuggets
mid-level
did.
on him.
They used their mid-level on him, which is like a Calvin Booth L. But
rare Calvin Booth L.
Yeah, he could walk in there and play a little bit if they needed that presence off the bench. But Christian Brown, they definitely have faith in after seeing him play in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I feel like there's this sort of investment that they're trying to make in Jamal and Michael Porter, and throughout the playoffs a little bit. I don't want to say we saw Michael Porter create for himself, but I personally was impressed with Michael Porter Jr.'s ability to handle the ball in the playoffs. I thought, and I don't want to say just the playoffs, near the end of the year, I think some noticeable development is there. But you're right, there's not enough development on Michael Porter Jr.'s end to really bank on that. And even Braun, I don't think Braun's a really he's a smart player, but he's not a initiate offense while not making mistakes.
Yeah,
type
and he's also
player,
he's going to be a sophomore player, and no matter how good you are, if you're a first year player, you're going to be prone to mistakes, and that's just part of how it goes.
Yeah, and I actually think I actually want to talk about this, guys, because the Jamal Murray rankings in Bleacher Report and ESPN and all that throughout the summer has been really high.
It's a little crazy.
And I get that he's coming off a ring, and he played really well in the playoffs, and he has historic playoff performances already. But if Jamal Murray does not take this step, they're going to see a lot of hate, and they're going to see a lot of backlash. And I think that's going to be the main that this whole last year, the main storyline was the Jokic Embiid shit. That's over. It's going to turn into it's going to turn to the Jamal Murray show, because it's a small market team and the media has to try to piss them off.
Saying it's over between Embiid and Jokic is putting it lightly. Let's just say that.
Up here.
It's so crazy to say, because Embiid's a top 7 player in the league.
Embiid is so good, but come on,
I want to say this. So obviously I don't care about these numbers because a lot of them are just accumulation of stuff that's just weird. But so you guys know that's LeBron stat, the luck adjusted box score, whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the cap, I'm using Fanspell for all my to see the roster and picks and all that stuff and all that, whatever. They put the LeBron rating on there. Jokic's was 7.03 last season. That's so
that's dumb.
like I don't even know what all goes in. Like I know it's like accumulation of like total cumulative stats and stuff.
Yeah.
So obviously like a triple double machine is always going to be super high in there, but just crazy to look at. Yeah, I really just don't think there's much to talk about with this team as a non-fan. That's why I am sad that we didn't get shot on here today due to his internet going down. Because he obviously is going to have a lot more insight onto what he's looking for from this team. But
yeah, and
at the end of the day,
he's just like honestly, I wish he could be on for. I wish he could have been on for all teams because he's just like such a smart basketball.
He is a basketball. He is a basketball freak.
He's upset. Yeah, he's crazy. Missed opportunity, but I am confident we'll have him on like very shortly.
Yes, hopefully we can have him on within the first few weeks of the season.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, for the seeding predictions, 1 or 2 seed. 2 seed if they're struggling to deal with injuries and maybe because that's really the biggest thing with this team. They were very healthy last season, even though MPJ did deal with some injuries, and Jamal, they were healthy for the beginning and the end of the season. And if they're not, then there could be some problems.
Yeah, I there's also one thing. Sorry, this is a note I missed to say before we go into seeding predictions. They shot lights out from 3, beginning, middle, end of the regular season and the playoffs. They didn't have one cold streak at all. They had maybe like a 3-game cold streak all year from their shooters.
They had like a 10-game streak in the middle of the season where they were like looking pretty rough.
Yeah,
I think that's.
But at that point, they looked average. Like that's how good they were. Their shooters were shooting. It's like, can that replicate? Because shooting, even with elite shooters, is very up and down.
Yeah, I think like they didn't go on any down streaks last year, and their shooting was so great. But I don't think it's like Miami Heat playoff shooting where it's they've got mid shooters and they just turn up. I think their personnel is just built for that kind of shooting season. Like Jamal Murray lights out. Jokic is like but best post up player.
He needs to be taking more
league.
Threes. He's shooting with such a good
Jokic is dumb. He's the best post up player in the NBA. Best post up player. Best passer in the NBA. He's maybe ever. Honestly, to me, he's the best passer ever. He is also like one of the best shooters in the NBA from all 3 levels. It's like he shot like 43% on threes in the playoffs on decent volume. And it's like, that's so stupid. So they've got him as a shooter. Aaron Gordon is up and down. MPJ is a shooter. KCP is a shooter. Yeah. Their starting lineup is crazy as far as shooting goes.
No, they're for sure built for shooting. It's just like, even with teams that are built for shooting, I was really shocked. I remember throughout the season, I've talked with Shadow. I was like, when is the cold streak coming? Because it's very rarely that only one shooter is cold for like a month and then all your other 4 shooters aren't cold. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not to say individually these guys didn't go on streaks themselves. It's just like, maybe you're right. The roster construction just overlaps so well that it just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We'll see.
We'll have to see if they kind of start cold or end cold and what that does to them. But my seeding prediction for this team is 1 to 3. I think they could end up as a 3 seed is just due to them, coming off the championship, maybe just not really caring where they end up. Because I think if you ask me, there's a world where like it finishes Phoenix, Sacramento, Denver as like a potential top 3, and that wouldn't even surprise me. Or maybe Golden State is great, or maybe Minnesota is like really good, or maybe the Clippers are healthy, or whatever. I think Denver could fall a little bit, but I don't think they're worried about that. I think they would just be great anyway.
Yeah. I have them at 1 or 2. I think I don't see the championship hangover being as big as a problem for this roster, mainly because of the disrespect they got throughout the whole process before and after they won the ring. And they're still going to face kind of this disrespect this year. And I talked about Jamal Murray, whether I was skeptical about him take the leap. I think he's going to come in with a little bit of a hot head and come in with something to prove. I think Michael Porter's going to come in with something to prove. And I think even these young guys, I have faith in these young guys. Like, I bring up these questions because they're reasonable, but I agree with Calvin Booth. Christian Braun, I think he's going to have a great sophomore campaign, and I think they're a 1 or 2 seed, and honestly, I would bet on a 1 seed. Like I don't even want to mess around betting on a 2 seed with these guys. They're so good.
Yeah,
and Jokic doesn't even have to care about basketball. He's so good at it. Like it doesn't matter.
Yeah, they're 1 or 2 seed. I think the only reason there could be a 2 seed is if there are some injuries that do come up.
Yeah,
and that's where. With that, that wraps up our Northwest Division preview. We'll be back next week, Thursday. Oh my goodness, will there be NBA games by that time?
Yes.
Wait, is that opening?
Is that opening night?
Yeah,
might be.
We might be recording a little bit later. We might just watch all the games.
Yeah.
Opening night: Sixers, Bucks, Suns, Lakers.
Ooh.
No, Bucks is the second game.
Oh, so then Wednesday's opening night. Tuesday?
No idea. Let's see.
I think
Tuesday.
First game is Tuesday, October 24th. Lakers Nuggets at 6:30 p.m. and Suns Warriors banger.
We'll be able to react to that then.
Wednesday is the full slate of games where there is 12 games. Thursday there's 2 games. Friday there's 11 games. Yeah, there you go.
Basketball is back.
Basketball's back. So we'll be talking real NBA basketball to the next episode here.
Let's go.
Perfectly aligned as we planned out, because despite what may come up with our planning and time management, we do have these things orchestrated pretty good. But with that being said, appreciate everyone who did watch the episode. If you made it to this point, make sure you leave a like, comment, subscribe, do all of those good things. Check out all of our socials down in the links below, and check out our other videos on the channel. With us getting some more free time coming up soon, hopefully we'll be having new videos. We should have a video dropping next week, probably Tuesday, or I might drop it Tuesday or Monday before the season starts. So we'll be dropping a video probably early next week. So look out for that, and have a good one. Peace out.
Peace.